fangirl out, right? Totally fangirling out. I'm so excited about this next panel. Let's bring him out right now. The one, the only, the incomparable Wil Wheaton! I really appreciate it. It means a lot.
I saw Stephanie backstage. Yesterday they said, do you want to have a moderator? And I was like, yeah, I think that would be, that would be good because I don't know if anybody's going to show up. And then I saw Stephanie backstage and I was like, oh my God, you're moderating me! And I told her I would have...
That's how I felt when they said yes, it's going to be moderated.
Yeah, so it's great. It's not, you know what? It's cool when like I know the person I'm going to be talking with and we have a little bit of a history. It just puts me at ease. And it lets me, hopefully, be the best version of myself that is available to me at this moment.
I love that. I love that. One of the things I like to do as a moderator is get right out of the way because these folks have spent a lot of time to come here and have a chance to talk to you. The microphone's right in the middle. You, sir, kick it off.
All right, Wil, thank you for everything you do to make it cool to be a geek and also
thanks, buddy.
making it okay to be not okay. All the stuff you talked about.
Thank you.
Radio Free Burrito. Any plans to bring it back? And is there anything fans can do to support you in doing that?
So Radio Free Burrito is a podcast that I used to do every week. It was a way to just express myself creatively and share some music and read some stories. And I was doing it at a moment in my life where I really needed that creative outlet. And I've spent the last 2 years writing 2 different books. And they're both coming out next year. So, one of them is a novel. It's a semi-autobiographical coming-of-age story set in 1983. It's called All We Ever Wanted Was Everything. And the other book is a collection of my speeches and essays and some blog posts that I'm proud of that got a lot of reaction from the audience. And that's called Uncertain Smile. And that will be out sometime next year as well. That book was going to be a small self-published thing for the 500 people who care about it. My agent found out that I was going to do that, and she was like, I want to take this to publishers, can I read it? And I said, yeah, of course, go ahead, read it, tell me what you think, but I'm probably just going to do this as a little thing. I don't think anybody's going to care about it. And she called me back the next morning, having read 120,000 words of mine overnight, and she said, you've written this incredible memoir about living with depression. Did you know that? And I was like, I know. So, to answer your question, I haven't needed to make Radio Free Burrito because I've been putting my creative energy into other projects. I did a couple of interesting audio experiments where I did cold readings of old pulp stories. I got them off the Internet Archive. They were really fun. And I might do something like that again. As far as what anyone can do, honestly, just listen to it and let me know that you listen to it. Because so often it feels like it just goes off into nothing. And the metrics that I get on it make it look like 25 people listen to what I'm doing. Like, that's the truth. And it takes a lot of time to do it well. And I would rather invest my time where it's going to go to more than 25 people because my time is limited. And listen, Red Dead Redemption 2 is not going to replay itself. And I'm already behind on Borderlands 3. I have important things that I have to do. So, if it's going to happen, if it will happen, and you're not the first person this weekend to ask about it, if it's going to happen, I will announce it in the usual places.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you for coming to Portland, and as he said, dinner to them, thank you for your mental health.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying so.
And I know everybody sits here and they repeat your awesome career back to you the last time they were here. Big Bang Theory, love what you did.
Thanks.
Love you participate. But I especially really got into your reading of Ernest Cline book.
Oh, thank you. that's a tremendous compliment, because that is 100% what I was going for. I'm glad it worked.
I was communicating the 217 through Beaverton when you mentioned you were in high school. I was like, I was correct. So anyway. So my question is, how did that come about, you doing that?
Yeah.
And how long does it actually take to do an audiobook?
Great question. So, allow me to say to you, really good job with your very first question. Like, you know what you want to ask, you were concise, you got right to it. Like, you're doing a great job, and I mean that sincerely. So, I have known Ernie since about 2000, maybe 2001. He had done a spoken word album called Ultraman is Airwolf. And I loved it. It was really funny and really clever. And he had a piece there on that album about growing up in the 80s and what it was like to not have cell phones and what it was like to have to get a busy signal when you call somebody and things like that. It's about how kids today have it so easy, and it's very funny. I loved it, and I submitted it to a website called Fark.com so that people could know about it. And it blew up. It kind of brought Ernie out of the Austin slam poetry scene to the wider world. And when he wrote Ready Player One, I guess he remembered that. And he reached out to me and he was like, hey, would you narrate this for me? And I was like, yeah, let's see if we can make a deal. So my audiobook rates are real high. Just because if they weren't real high, I would be doing it every single day. And I don't want that to be my full-time job. I want to write my own stories and work on my own things. So I'm very privileged, and I can set a price that's kind of high so that I can say no more than not. And he got his publisher to say yes, and we worked on it. And when the New York Times debuted their audiobook bestseller list, I debuted at #1 for reading that book. And then stayed there for weeks. So it was great. So it's a little bit of like that thing they say, it's like, who do you know? You know, like we tend to work with our friends.
And who do you help?
And I beg your pardon?
And who do you help? Because a lot of times they come back and help you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's extremely important that you remember, like, everybody remembers how people made us feel. And we have choices to make every day. We can always choose. Are we going to make this person feel good? I'm having a shitty day. Am I going to make this person feel as shitty as I feel? Or am I going to keep my own thing to myself and make them feel good? Like, everybody has choices to make every day. I do not always live up to my own lofty ideals. I don't know if you've been out in the world lately, but it's kind of on fire. And I don't always live up to those ideals, but I do my very best. To answer the second part of your question, it is an average of about 6 minutes per printed page of recorded audio. I can run for about 4 hours without stopping before I have to break for a little bit of food and to rest my voice, and then I can go for about another hour after that. I can work about 5 hours a day before I completely run out of gas. Now, to people who work real jobs and have real responsibilities, that seems insane. How can you only work for 5 hours? But it is an endless performance where I'm building an entire world and voicing different characters and keeping their voices straight and interpreting the material and all that. And it tends to take between 4 and maybe 7 total days, depending on the length of the book. Most of the Scalzi books I do, we finish in 3 to 4 days. I did an entire series of Zelazny books. I did like one of the Cycles and Chronicles of Amber. That took 3 weeks. I don't ever want to see that world again. So it depends, varies from project to project, but that's a rough average for me. Different narrators will tell you different things. Some people can go longer, some people can go shorter. You're welcome. Thanks for your question.
So that's a very tough act to follow. That was a very big first question.
I know, it was great.
I played the same card. This is my first con and my first panel.
Welcome.
First question. And I'm really cheap, but I'm not too proud. I mainly did this so I could see the Wil Wheaton was my first.
Congratulations. I can tell this is going to be deeply memorable for you. I will forget about it by the time I get to jail.
So you get on the questions for a big Bang Theory, of course,
Yeah.
and your audiobooks, and of course the Star Trek stuff. But I don't know how much people will still talk about, for example, Stand By Me. Kids these days, we have a lot more recourse for them to deal with bullying situations that
Yeah.
didn't exist when we were kids. And that moment you told on Keeper Sutherland.
Yeah.
It was cathartic, and some of you are laughing at what it was. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to thank you because that moment stuck with me.
Oh, thanks.
Somebody finally won. And so all I was going to leave you with, and everybody else here, is do you have a favorite random story from the time of making that film?
So, Mike Westmore is the name of the man who did all the makeup for Star Trek The Next Generation. He's won Emmys, he's incredible. His brother Monty built a head for the body, and it looked amazing. But by coincidence, it looked terrifyingly similar to this guy Kent, who was the stand-in for Corey Feldman. Like, it could have been a dummy of a wax figure. So someone in the production went, we have a real person who looks like this. Let's use the real person instead. So they did. They put, that's actually Kent, being Ray Brower. The day that we shot, one of the days that we shot that scene, we had lunch, and we were playing Ultimate Frisbee at lunch in a field. And Kent was on the other team from me. I was 13 when we did this. And I had the Frisbee, and I turned to throw it, and there's Kent, and all of his bloody dead guy makeup. And he just goes, "Ah!" And I was 13, and I went, "Ah!" And I dropped the Frisbee, and they got it. There are so many memories from working on that movie. You know, it was a coming of age moment for me in my real life, as it was for Gordy in the story. But that's the thing that's always stood out to me, because that was one of those weird moments that only happens when you're working in movies. And it's one of the reasons that working in movies is fun.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hi.
So I follow you on Tumblr, and
Thanks.
As do I.
Oh.
That's not a shock. I follow it everywhere. Go ahead, that's fine.
it's always a joy to see you come across my dash, because you're always so kind to everybody who messages you.
Oh, thank you.
I really appreciate seeing that, especially since you could very easily not do that.
Well, listen, there's a whole lot of not kind in the world right now. And I think it is so extremely important that we be the change we wish to see in the world, because I believe that. We have choices to make all the time. And I think it's really important to treat people the way you want to be treated in the world. We tend to attract what we put out. I told the young woman who's helping me today, you're going to love the people who identify as my fans. They are the coolest people. They're kind, they're friendly, they're creative, they're enthusiastic. And she says, well, yeah, but that's because that's the way you treat them. And I was like, oh my God, it's working!
I just want to say thank you for that.
You're so very welcome. Thank you for saying so.
I have to ask you about your bracelet. I mean, we all know the catchphrase. Any
Yeah.
one of us in here can recite it, but I love that you're wearing it on your wrist.
Okay.
That tells right to your point.
So it says, don't be a dick. My wife made this for me. Our friend Sarah Coates is on a show called Z Nation. And Sarah's an amazing human being. I adore her. And as like a fidget, she makes these little bracelets. She and her boyfriend make them all the time. So we were on a little retreat with some friends, and Sarah and Ann were like making little bracelets. And Ann walked over and gave me this bracelet that says "Don't be a dick," and I just love it. Like, and it's like, I love that it's purple and pink and green, and like it kind of looks like something a 12-year-old girl would be wearing. And like, I'm the guy covered in tattoos who's always wearing punk rock t-shirts with a bracelet that looks like a little girl will be wearing it, and I just love that.
Go ahead.
I'm talking Wil Wheaton.
I know, right?
I follow you on Instagram a lot, and I really
Thanks.
appreciate it. Again, as everybody has said, thank you for your honesty with going through depression and those kind of things. My wife and I are huge fans of tabletop.
Oh, thanks.
Because there's one game in particular, Dread,
Oh yeah, Dread's great.
and we're going to meet you later on and have you sign a copy of it.
Oh, awesome, I love that.
But, yeah, that episode like, really freaked us out and was really great.
Oh good, that was the goal.
So my question is, what is your advice for like building those kind of stories? It doesn't have to be just for Dread, but Dread is kind of the one.
So the way that you build story, Dread is a role-playing game where instead of rolling dice, when your character is challenged to do something that is dangerous, it's a horror role-playing game. And you stack a tower of like the game Jenga. You stack Jenga blocks in the middle of your table.
We call it Death Jenga.
Death Jenga, great. We call it similar, but similar to yet legally distinctly different from Jenga when we did it on the show. What you do is every time you need to do something that is challenging, like keeping it together when you hear a werewolf howling outside, or staring down a vampire, or trying to like keep your grip on your crucifix or whatever it is, you have to pull a block out of the Jenga tower. And if the tower falls, your character dies. So it builds tension, and it just creates this terrible sense of dread while you're playing the game. The way to build great dread stories is to know where your strongest infliction points are coming, so you have them set up. You want to build about 10 or 15 of those into the story, and then let the characters and the players kind of figure out what they're going to do with the broader bits of the story. And as every time you have an opportunity to make them pull from the tower, do it. And what I did when we did the show, and what I did when we played in my home game, is I always tell them, it's your choice. Do you want to pull from the tower right now? Like, I can tell you what's going to happen, or you can take some agency and take that risk and decide what's going to happen. And it's terrifying, and like it makes you stick to your stomach, and you're shaking while you're trying to pull it, and it's great, and it really creates that sense of dread. So that's my advice, is to build in those moments, and then every time they have to do something that challenges what their character is about, they have to go to the tower.
And is that pretty standard for most of your tabletop games that you're building a story with? Or?
Yeah, whenever I'm doing stories for tabletop games, like I did a show called Titans Grave the Ashes of Volcano. Thank you guys. Oh, I love it. You are the people who watched it. I love it. What I wanted to do was share how role-playing games can be a collaborative storytelling thing. So I had the players tell me before we started playing, what's the secret about your character that only you know, and what's the secret about another character that only your character knows? And then I wrote all that stuff down, and then I used it as I built my narrative so that they would be challenged and that their backstory would help their characters come through.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You look like you have a question for me.
I just was having to throw my action.
Okay.
So anyhow, grew up watching Star Trek Next Generation, so
Thanks.
that was amazing. Love that, but not related to questions. Just wanted to say thank you and fantastic.
Thank you.
My question is relating to the mental health thing. Everybody can thank you for that, and you are phenomenal with that. And everybody can take a cue from that, being more open and honest.
Yeah.
What helps you to stay grounded if you're having an off day, whether that be fans, whether that be job, whether that be the weather? And can you offer any advice to anybody who might need that?
It is extremely important for those of us who live with mental illness, for those of us who have depression and anxiety. We have a voice that we use when we talk to ourselves. And that voice can say whatever we choose to let it say. And for a long time, the voice that I heard in my head was the angry, implacable voice of my father, who spent my entire childhood bullying me. I internalized that voice, and I really believed all of the things that it told me. Then I had this revelation that I would never talk to my dog the way I talk to myself. And I realized that if I talk to myself the way I talk to my dog, I lift myself up, I love myself, I praise and encourage myself. People will hear me say, "Good job, Wheaton," like when I do a thing that I'm proud of, right? I think it's important to do that. There is no magic wand that you can wave to make depression go away, because if it did, the super helpful advice we get from people to just cheer up would totally work. Turns out it doesn't. But that really helps prevent me from helping depression beat me down. Depression is going to do its best, and I have lived with it for so long, and I have learned to manage it effectively enough that when those days come around, I tell my wife, I'm just having a bad day, and I'm having a hard time, and there's things that I want to do, and I'm very privileged and very fortunate to be able to just kind of stay in the room and not go anywhere today. And I give myself permission to do that. Like someone else said, it's okay to not be okay. But choosing to speak to myself in a kind and gentle voice, instead of saying like, "Oh, you're so stupid," or "That's so dumb," or "Nobody wants to do that." I was talking to my therapist, and I was like, "I'm doing this thing and nobody's going to care about it." And the therapist says, "Can I just stop you for a minute? Because I think what you mean is your dad's not going to care about that." And I was like, holy shit. That is the Rosetta Stone for my anxiety. And knowing that and having that revelation let me be kind to myself. So maybe that's a very long way of saying be kind and gentle to yourself. And when we have bad days, it's okay. It's okay to have a bad day. And know that it's not forever and it's gonna get better. And even though depression does its best to make us feel like we are the only people who have ever felt this way and it's never gonna go away, none of that is true.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You already answered my question responding to somebody else, so I want to again thank you for bringing awareness to mental health.
You're welcome.
Your honesty towards it has been a lifetime.
Thanks. I am doing the best to be the person I need in the world.
You made it.
Thank you for that. Also, I see you're wearing a baby Groot on your shoulder. I want to tell you an adorable story. A few cons ago, there was a young girl. She's probably 5 or 6 years old. She was in a Groot costume. And I said, "Hey, you're Groot." She goes, "I am Groot." And I said, "Are you having fun at the con?" And she goes, "I am Groot." And I said, "You are Groot." She goes, "I am Groot." And her mom says, I'm so proud of her, since she put the mask on, she has only said, "I am Groot."
Sorry, everybody's been nailing home the anxiety and depression thing, but I got a second.
Can I just riff on that for a second? Every single one of us in this room who lives with depression and anxiety has at some point in our life felt like we're the only person in the world who has this. We are the only because our depression tells us we deserve it. And what I hope all of you will take away from this, and from these people that are choosing to come up and share their experience with me, is that that is not true. We are not alone. We are not the only people who have ever felt it, and we absolutely do not deserve it. It's not because of something we did. And it's so important to remember that. And if you are one of the people who is not affected by mental illness, I guarantee you have someone in your life who is. And remember when they're having a rough time, that they feel like they're the only person that's ever gone through this before, and they feel like they deserve it. And we have a little bit of a responsibility as a person in their life to lift them up and love them and remind them that they're worthy and they're valid, and that the way that they feel because of their mental illness is not who they are as a person. Please continue.
No, thank you. And then I also wanted to to say, like, so I did the photo op just a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And when we were in line, somebody came out with like a sign that was like, no touching, and they were just kind of reminding everybody, like, please respect this personal space and all of that.
Yeah.
And there were some people you could tell were a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
But it actually made me really happy because I have anxiety too, and I don't really like touching. So
Oh,
I was like,
thanks.
this is great.
So I was at a con a few years ago, and people were coming up and telling me they were sorry that I wasn't feeling well. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it's like, oh, they said that you have a little bit of a cold. I was like, no, it's not. They were like, don't touch me because he's got a cold. And I was like, no, don't touch me because I have severe anxiety. And if someone comes up and puts their arm around me, I freak out. I can't help it. It terrifies me. So these are my boundaries. And I think it is extremely important that we just say, I'm so happy to be here. I'm having so much fun. This is great. But this is what I'm comfortable with. And we all have to establish and defend our boundaries and respect the boundaries of the people in our lives. So thanks for saying that.
It was nice to not have to say that myself. And then I also did have a question. Like, I worship the next generation crew, so I love you from that.
Thank you.
But I wanted to ask about Big Bang.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of friends who say that they don't like the show because they think that it just stereotypes nerds and it makes fun of them more than it is for them.
Sure.
What would you say to those people?
I disagree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I disagree with it because the writers are all nerds. And the writers are putting focus on and having fun with the things that make us who we are. It's silly. It comes from a place of love. When Howard is being a creep, we're not laughing at the uncomfortable women around him. We're laughing at how this guy is so completely oblivious to what a terrible creep he is. And how he just doesn't get it. We all know that guy. Don't be that guy. We as nerds know that building a spreadsheet so that we can plan out canvassing the show floor at San Diego Comicon to make sure that we maximize our opportunity to get the con exclusives before they sell out is nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to feel weird about. But to the muggles in our lives, it is hilarious that we are doing that. That's what that show is doing. I suspect, and I was just talking to my wife about this last week, I suspect that when you hear that from people, they actually haven't watched the show. They've read a couple of articles online about it from people who have a particular point of view that they're absolutely entitled to, that doesn't necessarily reflect the entire body of the show. There are times where I feel like it really misses the mark. There are times where I'm like, that joke was really sexist and I think they could have done better. And I've told them and they know that. And I think they're always trying to be the best that they can be. But like everything else, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine.
Right on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
First, I wanted to say, real quick, for my question, if you see LeVar, Burton, or Jonathan Frakes, or Patrick, please tell them to come to Rose City or Rose City.
I will.
We have them.
When they have a chance, because I've seen all the main next-gen cast members except for Patrick and Jonathan.
Well, I talk to Frakes almost every week. He's real close to being the dad I always wanted. And I love him. He and the cast helped raise me when I was a weird teenager. And I love them for that. And this con and Emerald City are magnificent cons. Y'all are great fans in this Northwest. And you always make us feel welcome. I will be sure to pass that along. What's your question?
If they can't, I would sort of cross something off my bucket list. The question is, if you got offered by your agent or whoever to be on the board, would you?
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be really fun, and because it is a frequently asked question, people want to know if Wesley's going to be in the Picard show, and they haven't asked me. I don't expect that they will. I think it's very unlikely that they will. I would do everything I can to say yes if they ask me. But I feel like, honestly, the Star Trek show that I want to be part of more than anything is the new animated series. Lower Decks. Oh my God, it looks so funny and so clever and so brilliant. I'm just saying, I'm a voice actor, I've won awards, I'm pretty good at it.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you for your question. Can someone help this delightful young human? Good work.
Hello, my name is Peyton.
Hi, Peyton.
Have you ever beat Mice and Mystics?
I have never beat Mice and Mystics because it gets so hard when you have to fight the cat. Have you beat Mice and Mystics?
No.
It's so hard. Well, you know what we do?
That's because we've never finished it.
Well, you know how you can beat it? Go play it again. Thank you for your question, and thank you for playing games.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Peyton.
She just skipped right out of there.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Hunter.
Hi, Hunter.
What is it like playing Wesley in Star Trek?
It was wonderful. I love Star Trek. I grew up watching Star Trek when I was a little boy. I watched it in black and white, which is a thing you don't know. You don't know what that means. And I watched it on television, which is another thing you don't know. And I loved it. I love that Star Trek said there is a future where people get along. I love that Star Trek said there's a future where we're all different, and that makes us better. That the things that make us unique are what make us special, and that humanity can work with alien species to do incredible things. I loved that. And I love Star Trek. And also Mr. Spock was so cool. And Captain Kirk was such a badass. So when I had the opportunity to work on The Next Generation, it was very much a dream come true for me. I had spent my whole childhood pretending that I was on Star Trek. I played Star Trek on the playground. I read the Star Trek books. I had Star Trek records that I listened to. I read the comic books. I loved it. So getting to be Wesley Crusher, getting to be part of Star Trek, and getting to imagine every day for 5 years that living in outer space was real was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Something that I haven't actually had the opportunity to say to you, and I'll make it super fast, but I don't often rewatch things. I usually watch them once and put them away, but when I was pregnant with my daughter 11 years ago, we got WGN because I could watch Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, great.
No, for real, I watched the whole thing. The show holds up so brilliantly, even today, even with the new special effects and with everything. It's fantastic. You were fantastic, and it's just so cool to see so many fans of the show here today. So, thanks.
It is at once inspiring and hopeful, and also disheartening that Star Trek remains relevant from its roots in 1966.
Go ahead.
Hello.
So you've been married for 2 decades.
That is true.
I'm sure she's a lovely woman.
She's handsome.
Dude, you have no idea.
I follow her too, by the way.
She's the best person in the world, and I cannot, every day, I am grateful that she chooses me. I'm just going to tell you to tread lightly. We all have choices to make.
Is there a gentleman out there who would get you to explore the other side of the country?
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
None of us are worthy.
One of the great joys of my life being part of Stand By Me and Star Trek and all of that is that I have met so many, so many gay men who have told me that Wesley Crusher was part of them accepting who they were, that they had a crush on Wesley, and that was when they realized that they weren't interested in girls, they were interested in boys. And it is such an unbelievable honor to know that I was part of someone's life. Listen, I'm a cisgendered, straight, white dude. Like, things are working out real well for me in the world. I cannot imagine what it must be like to have that moment in your life where you have to say, this is who I am and I know it's going to be hard. And that Wesley Crusher gets to be part of that moment and maybe makes it a little easier, makes me feel so, so grateful. Hi, Mom. Thank you.
As a fellow parent, what are some advice for getting more games in the family as well as with the anxiety and depression? How do you go about the household and watching them getting it?
There's two things that I did that really helped make games more fun for my kids. The very first thing is we established from the very beginning that we are playing this to have fun together, and that we never want to make other people feel badly if we're winning and they're not. I've gone through this with my nephew, where like sometimes he had a moment where he was a real bad sport. If he was winning, he was like kind of obnoxious about it, and then when he was losing, he didn't want to play. And one of the things I told him was, hey buddy, you know how good it feels when you're rolling the dice well, and I don't know how that feels, but like, you know how good it feels when you're rolling the dice well, when you're getting the cards you want, when you're, and he was like, yeah. I said, you know how good that feels? Yeah. You love Mom, right? Yeah. I mean, you love Aunt Ann, right? Yeah. You know how good you feel? Well, that's how they feel when they're doing well. And don't you want them to feel that way? Well, yeah. So that's not when you walk away, that's when you say, I'm so happy for you that you're doing well. And it's okay for us to play the game and do our best to roll well in the game or like to win the game, but we never trade the joy of playing the game in pursuit of winning the game. And we just repeat it over and over and over again. And sometimes you gotta put them in a timeout, and sometimes you just have to say, I feel like maybe now's not a good time for us to play this game. And you have to put it away, and that's a giant bummer, but that's just the thing that we do. The other thing that happens is there's nothing worse for a kid than feeling disempowered. And there are times in a game where the dice aren't falling the way you want them to, or you're not drawing the cards that you need to, you just feel stuck. So when my kids were small, I gave them 3 poker chips, and these were their do-over chips. And they got to use them to roll the dice again, or draw a different card, or replay a turn if things just fell apart for them. And what happened by doing that is they had agency. They had an opportunity to make a choice at a time when the game had taken their agency and their empowerment away from them. And it made gaming a lot more fun for them. As far as how to notice the signs of depression and anxiety, I am not qualified to answer that. But that's a great question to ask. And as a child of parents who didn't ask that question, I'm glad that you are asking it. I would recommend talking to a psychologist and asking, because that's a really good question. You're welcome. So I just got these verified instructions. So what we need to do is make these, the last folks are in line, I want you to make your questions yes or no questions. We're going to do the lightning round. Yeah, starting with you. You don't have a question? Oh, no. Okay, all right. I'm going to give you get the last regular question. Everybody else, start rephrasing your questions in your head into yes or no questions, and we're going to lightning round our way through the rest of the line. Go.
I have a lot of friends who make fun of me for liking things a lot because they're all muggles.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like the way friends treat people.
Why do you like these He was like, this is really cool. This is what you're talking about all the time? And I was like, yeah, this is what I love. This is why I love it. It's really cool. And like, what's your advice on how can I, like,
How can you get your muggles into Hogwarts? Is that what you're asking? Not everybody wants to get a letter from their owl. And that's okay, right? So I have friends that are crazy about football. There is nothing in the world more boring to me than watching football. But they love football the way I love Doctor Who, right? When they do fantasy football, they're playing D&D for jocks. When they dress up in their jerseys, they're cosplaying. When they paint themselves and go to a football game, they're cosplaying, and they're with their fellow nerds, right? When they are watching those games, they're binge watching a series, this exact same way that we do. What's important to remember is that being a nerd is not about the thing you love, it's about the way that you love it. Your friends are nerdy for things, they just don't know what those things are, and they don't necessarily know that they're nerds for them. So I would say, show them the first thing that made you nerd curious, and see if it grabs their attention. And if it doesn't,
The next generation.
don't start with season 1. And if it turns out that it's not their jam, that's totally fine. Everybody doesn't have to love the same things. You're welcome. I believe in you.
Hi, my name is Michael.
Hi.
When I first started watching Felicia Days of the Guild, I did that work. I loved it. Woo! Slowly there's Wil Wheaton on it. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
I have to tell you, this is really feeling like not a yes or no question. I mean, you had time to come up with a yes or no question, and I'm really disappointed. So the answer to your question is no.
Is your dog doing better? And can you?
Yes! Yes, she is. Thank you for asking. I'll do when I get home.
So as you pointed out earlier, the world is kind of on fire.
A little bit.
And you were on a show that showed the good guys beating the bad guys every time. So, as a yes or no question, if there was another option for you to play chaos, would you do it?
Yes. Yeah. I love working on others. The best day of chaos' life is the day Nate Ford says, I've decided that I'd like you to join my crew. Yeah. Yes. Stand by me. Thanks. That doesn't sound like a yes or no question, ma'am. The short answer.
So did you like working with
So much. I love him. I learned so much from comedy, so much about comedy from working with Jim. I learned that comedy is music, and a four-camera sitcom show like The Big Bang Theory is a small chamber orchestra where everybody has to be playing from the same piece of music on the same beat in order for it to all come together. And if anyone is even the tiniest bit out of key, the whole thing falls apart. And that taught me so much about performing comedy. Oh, thank you. Good work. Hi.
I wanted to tell you, my husband is one of those people who had a crush on you growing up.
Amazing. I love that.
I was also going to ask about the Guild, so I'm going to turn to you, yes or no. Was that character on the Guild the one that you played that was the most different from your actual personality?
Oh yeah, he's a total douchebag. Yeah, he's a total douchebag. But to justify his douchebaggery, I decided that it all came out of insecurity, which is where most douchebaggery originates. And I wrote his backstory when I did the comic for Dark Horse. So if you can find it, I know it's out of print, but there's a Guild omnibus. Jamie McKelvey did the artwork for it, which was a huge get for me. And it tells his story, and you can find out why he is the way he is.
I'm rewatching it right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I'm sure you get a lot of negative feedback just because that's what people are. So I guess that's when I ask the question, when people are giving you, heckling you or giving you a hard time in entertainment industry, best case scenario is to ignore them?
Heckling is a person saying, I want everyone to pay attention to me right now. And it's kind of pathetic. And when that happens, you know, the instinct is to just like shoot down the heckler and like just murder that heckler and try to like make sure nobody else ever wants to heckle her. I'm not a stand-up comic, so I don't really have that thing. In general, when someone pulls something like that, my response is, why did you want to come at me like that? Like, why was that your choice? There's so many different ways that you could have initiated this conversation with me. Why did you choose to do it that way? Most of the time, they don't know. Because they haven't gotten past, blah, 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 I'm a dick, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, ha, 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 and I really got him. And then it's like, this is a great thing. Listen, I just want to talk to my fellow white people for a moment. There's a lot of us here in the Pacific Northwest. It is not enough for us to not be racist. We have to be anti-racist. One of the ways we do that, we encounter our fellow white people who think it's okay to like say racist things or make racist jokes. Or like assume that we are bigoted the way that they are. I have found this magnificent trick. When someone says some dumb racist thing, and the premise of the joke is like based on racism, the response to it is, I don't get it. I don't understand. Why is that funny? I don't understand the joke you're telling me. Could you explain that joke to me? I really want to be able to get it. And then watch them have to own what a big fucking racist they are. Because there should never be a safe space in this world for a bigot.